the three that I told, and I'll retell them in a very quick manner because we've got lots of other awesome people on here who are going to talk to you. It's so complex and so dynamic, the farm family. Everyone's different, right? The one, and I call this story the Uncle Gordon story, right? Everyone's got, right, that uncle in the farm world. And this particular uncle, he was a bachelor, right? So again, a little bit different, but Uncle Gordon, he had a successful farm operation. He did everything right. When he passed away, and his will said certain nephews and nieces were going to get some farmland, certain nephews and nieces were going to get some cash, and that was sort of how it was. Looking at it, it seemed like, yeah, things seemed to be all right. He invested a bunch of money into a portfolio with one of the big banks, and that was sort of going to be there as part of that cash going to the nieces and nephews. And at the end of the day, because of, well, land values increasing so much and his cost base on his land being kind of low, right? Because he bought it over the last 40 to 50 years, his tax bill basically was eaten up by that entire portfolio, right? So that wealth that he had hoped to transfer to, the people, the beneficiaries of his estate, it didn't quite work out that way, right? And he had a $250,000 life insurance policy that was there to help out a little bit. But yeah, he burned through basically through a $4 million investment portfolio. So that's, that's a story. Sometimes we don't have those intergenerational rollovers, which is a great tool, which we still do have. But sometimes that intergenerational rollover, even though there is kids, we may not get there. And the other story I talk about is one of my clients named Rod. Rod, he didn't end up having any kids who wanted to take over the farm. He was getting into his, early 70s, I believe, at that point in time. And at the end of the day, someone came along with an offer that he just really couldn't say no to. He went ahead with it. He did have a lot of his land held personally. He also had a corporation that had some inventory as equipment buildings, a few other things like that. And, after kind of certainly after year one in the tax bill he was like, oh, geez, this is painful. Year two, still kind of big taxes. And he's like, oh, man, I didn't know it was going to be like this, right? And we did what we could with the tools that we had, right? And so that kind of, and after year three, he came in and he almost looked a little deflated. And he said, I wish I would have never done that, right? Because the planning, we had the plans in place that we thought we could use. We didn't know what else we had out there. So that's always an interesting one. And then the third one is I do have a situation where mom and dad, they have the two farming kids. They've got a couple non-farming kids. They're going to do, or they did do, an estate freeze. So effectively they were like, we're ready to hand the farm off to you guys. We don't want to wait till we die. We're going to hand that off. At that point in time, the farm land value put the value of that corporation up around $40 million. Which is a big number. So when we do an estate freeze, each of the mom and dad, they got $20 million in preferred shares, so that's great. Right now, it's fine. Is the farm going to be able to pay out $40 million of the preferred shares before they die? Highly unlikely. So when mom and dad do die, there's going to be a big tax liability. Where's that money going to come from? How is the farm going to be able to afford it? Are they going to have to sell land to pay off the tax bill for it? Possibly, probably, actually, right? So, and who wants to be in that situation where you're going, we got to sell stuff here to pay this off? So having a life insurance policy in place, like we're going to talk about, could certainly be a big part of that. And so when we talk about preserving wealth, I know it's not all, and my part's more about coming from that tax and accountant lens. We'll look at it from some other lenses too, but just imagine like the capabilities of having that life insurance, an appropriate life insurance strategy in place. One other thing that I'll talk about before I wrap it up is I'd mentioned that family that's got the two farming kids, but we've got the non-farming kids. this is and we talk about the Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner, you know, back in the day, mom and dad would have got, $1 million life insurance policy. And then that was in place to offset, farming children get the farm, non-farming children, this is what you get. Well, with the farm being worth 30 million now, is that $1 million life insurance policy gonna make everybody at ease in that situation? I think everybody knows what the answer to that is, right? And everyone's kind of thinking about their own situations and going, yeah, I can see where that could be problematic, and we've got to do something now to sort of mitigate some of these potential issues and problems down the road. So those are the three stories. I'm sure there's a little bit of that in everybody on this call, and whether it's what degree it's to, it might vary, but that's sort of my experiences in my practice before joining CORE. And again, I think it would be a fairly typical scenario for most people in the Western Canadian ag sector. So that's all I got to say, Dan.